This is a cricket podcast.
We've been catching all the action of the men's T20 World Cup at the Gabba.
Two mates obsessed with the game.
If England are getting up under that pace of Lockie Ferguson, then they're going to hit it into the stand.
Covering all the on-field action.
New Zealand, England and Australia must win by a lot.
This is the Back of a Length podcast.
Hello and welcome to episode 3 of season 2 of the Back of a Length podcast. Renee here with you, and this week I am going solo. Mark is still dancing around England somewhere, and I'm coming to you from a hotel room in Brisbane. We've been catching all the action of the men's T20 World Cup at the Gabba. So I thought I'll do this one solo and I'll tell you all about what has happened, because it's been an action-packed few days. These games were crucial because nearly all teams had a rained-out game last week, meaning points were split. There's everything to play for to make the semi-finals. Sunday, Bangladesh versus Zimbabwe. Now, I know that there's still an idea that these bottom-of-the-pool games, can be dismissed, but that's not what these fans thought. They were in full go mode, the fans and the players, and to me it was so much fun to sit on the sideline and watch cricket between two very level teams, and an honour to watch Zimbabwe play after a little bit of controversy around their board. Bangladesh took the win in the final over, so still a bit of a thrill there. It was a great day of cricket thanks to the Zimbabwe fans who adopted me there. Day 2 at the Gabba, Australia, Ireland. Now, I was very concerned that people would think I was supporting Australia because I didn't have any fan gear on, and I could not find an Ireland hat anywhere in the stand that I could buy. So if anyone from the T20 World Cup is listening, come on, we need some better merchandise so it doesn't look like I'm supporting Australia. Look, it could have been a good game. Ireland had beat England last week, so there was a little bit of hope there. And I think Ireland bowled fairly well to Australia in their first innings. Australia ended up on 179. A massive shout out to Aaron Finch, who scored 63. We keep saying he's out of form. So, props to Aaron Finch. I'm always happy to be proved wrong, and Mark's not here to try back himself up because he hates being proved wrong. So I'm going to say a massive shout out to Aaron Finch there. Ireland came out to bat and couldn't stand up to Australia's bowling attack. Were consistently undone across the innings, apart from a wonderful fighting 71 from Lorcan Tucker. I think this was probably as expected. We said in both our last 2 episodes that Australia's bowling attack is probably one of the most ferocious there is. I know that Finn Allen took him apart in that first game they had against New Zealand, but Australia have fought back and have kept their chances of making the semi-finals alive with that win over Ireland. On to day 3 at the Gabba. It started with the Sri Lanka-Afghanistan because this was a double header. I thought it might go close to call, but to be honest, Sri Lanka looked set from ball 1. They got a breakthrough in their first innings bowling after Afghanistan were about 40 without a loss, and as soon as they got that first wicket, it was sort of all over, picking across the innings and then chasing down the total when Sri Lanka came out to that. Again, shout out though, a passionate Sri Lankan fans out on a Tuesday afternoon. Absolutely love that. Now on to the big one, Tuesday night, New Zealand, England. Mark took a little break from his holiday to tune in, and we were messaging throughout the whole game. I will never share those messages because there was a little bit of swearing and a little bit of a frustration from both sides, I think, with this game. Look, I think New Zealand were on the back foot after they lost the toss and had to bowl first. I think New Zealand bat first. And when New Zealand bat first, they are a better team because I think they just can set the pace. I thought the bowlers for New Zealand were bowling good line and length for the most part, but it just felt like they couldn't get the breakthrough, and as the innings pushed on, they were getting more and more frustrated. I know Lockie Ferguson went for nearly 10 and over. So, if England are getting up under that pace of Lockie Ferguson, then they're going to hit it into the stand. There were dropped catches that didn't help. Kane Williamson dropped one. Well, he thought he'd caught it, but it actually touched the ground as he went down. And then Daryl Mitchell, a tough chance, especially with a fractured finger, But yeah, unfortunately, if that had come off, I think New Zealand would have been in a better position. New Zealand, I thought that maybe they would bat better than they did. It just didn't come off for Finn Allen and Devon Conway there. And again, for Jimmy Neesham and Daryl Mitchell, this was the third game to be played on that wicket, so the sixth innings. Was the pitch deteriorating? Possibly, but it just more felt like New Zealand never found that bowler to target around that 12th to 16th over, and that the run chase just really got away from them. So the final round of pool games becomes even more crucial. New Zealand, England and Australia must win by a lot to keep themselves in contention to make that semi-final spot. New Zealand should keep themselves in a good position thanks to that amazing win over Australia in their first game, because their net run rate is big. England and Australia are probably going to be the ones to fight that out. So, all to play for. Next week, we will take a look at who makes the cut and who is going home. Well, because it's just me here today and I didn't want to talk about the games for so long, I thought we'd do a little cricket Ask Me Anything. So I put the call out on Twitter and on Instagram at Back of a Length if you want to find us there to see what you wanted to know. So one of our Twitter followers, I think you say your username, Shavani, she asked, could we see an India-New Zealand in the finals? What do you think? Well, I would love it. I think that would be such a fun final, but I think it's unlikely. So just to wrap our head around how these semi-finals could look. So the winner of Pool A will play the runner-up of Pool B and vice versa. So assuming New Zealand win against Ireland and neither England or Australia win by a huge amount, New Zealand should still top their pool. Meanwhile, Pool B, South Africa would have to lose to Pakistan. I don't think South Africa will lose to Pakistan. They're looking really good, actually, in their games at the moment. And I think that they will win their pool. This is something we will pick up next week about South Africa, because they have just surprised me about how good they've been. So I think what we'll find is India will come second in their pool, meaning New Zealand and India will play in the semi-finals. Also just pointing out here that India do not have a good track record in their semi-finals. They tend to get under the pressure and not sort of progress through, whereas New Zealand, I think, fight really hard in their semi-finals. We've seen that both in 2015 and the 2019 World Cup, and hopefully they can do it again to make the finals. So New Zealand-India final, don't think it's going to happen, unfortunately. Now, another question here from Richard, who was our guest last week. He asked, how did that miss the stumps? I'm assuming you mean when Trent Boult was bowling last night? I don't know. I thought Boulty looked really good last night. He was bowling great line and length, so really rough that nothing came off for him. Ended up on figures of like 0 for 40, which is very unlike Trent Boult. Did not like that. Another question. Why are you so obsessed with Michael Rippon? Because he's got good hair. That's all. I saw his hair in the Super Smash. I thought that's cool. Also, he's a good cricket player. Question here, why are New Zealand so bad at cricket these days? Okay, I think someone's asked this as a joke, but I actually want to answer it. Look, I think the Black Caps will rebuild and refine their mojo in the next sort of wee while. It's just kind of felt like New Zealand have a bit of fatigue from cricket, from lockdowns, from being on the road. Yeah, I just think that they need to refine themselves, and I think bringing in fearless players like Glenn Phillips and Finn Allen has really boosted the morale of the team. You know, when Finn Allen came out and played that innings against Australia, it just was like, it doesn't matter I'm in a World Cup, it doesn't matter that I'm in Australia. When New Zealand have had such a bad record, it was like, I'm Finn Allen and I want to come out and play my game of cricket. And I think that just boosted the morale of the team, and I hope that fire sticks in the team, and I hope that New Zealand can bring that into their tests. So they will take on England in 2 tests later in this season. If you bring some of that firecracker in that's sitting in this short form team, I think New Zealand will be way better. Also want to shout out that New Zealand's investing more resources into women's cricket, so the White Ferns will also improve. Another question here, your favourite first 11 you've ever compiled? Love this. I'm only going to do ones that we've said on the podcast, so there's not going to be any spoilers. I'm going to say probably the one from episode 1, season 1, the first 11 of things you find around the house, because that was really funny. And it was kind of that start of the first 11 of pun names, which then sort of spawned into so many more first 11s. So yeah, that one is my favourite. But of course, also first 11 of best here at the 2020-2021 Super Smash. And what else did I like? I quite enjoyed one we did leading into the Netherlands tournament. That was the first 11 of no biliary particles, just because we managed to fill that one in without actually researching any names. So you can find that one if you go back to season 1 and search up our previews of the Black Caps Netherlands games. And final question here. Are you excited for Mark to come home? I was, until last night. Okay, that was fun. We'll do another little Ask Us Anything in the season. Of course, if you ever have any questions, do just drop us a note on Twitter, on Instagram, or on Facebook at Back of the Length. Always happy to answer questions. We'll get Mark back in here because he is opinionated as heck, and will definitely want to get stuck into any of your questions. All right, let's jump straight into our first 11 of the week. So we had a little bit of feedback on the podcast last week. My friend said, well, this sounds great, but all your hair chat makes me feel left out because I have no hair. Oh, I thought, I'm so sad for you. But the good news is that I've compiled a first 11 of players that are bald, just to make you feel better. Here we go. In at 1, Hashim Amla. In at 2, Chris Harris. In at 3, Chris Lynn. In at 4, Moen Ali. That's Mark's favourite player, by the way. In at 5, Seth Rance. In at 6, Darren Lehman. In at 7, Herschel Gibbs. In at 8, Brian Close. 9, Doug Bollinger. 10, Matt Pryor. And 11, Nathan Lyon. There you go. First 11 of bald men. That is it from me this week. I'm keeping it short and sweet. Next week it will be all about who makes those semi-final spots in the men's T20 World Cup. We'll try and get another guest on to talk through all of that. Meanwhile, if you ever want to get in touch, we're at Back of a Length on Twitter, Instagram and Facebook. I'll see you next week.